or I don't know if he's an atheist or not. I'm pretty sure. Doesn't really matter, but he is really outspoken about Islam,
Okay.
basically. And he's great. I mean, the things he says are great. He's not a racist or a bigot, and I mean it's just really clear. Everything he says is just very clear and straightforward and easy to understand. And yet, of course, everyone on the left, the, the far left,
Yeah.
calls him a bigot, narcissist, and of course.
Yeah.
But that's I think you know, I think we're just gonna have to get used to being called bigots and racists,
Yeah.
basically. And that's fine. That's fine with me. Actually, it's kind of a badge of honor at this
Uh,
point.
yeah. I think when you're dealing with a group of people like not Muslims, but people from certain areas of the world, you know, like Afghanistan and places like that, especially if they're involved in a religion that is known to be violent. You know, it's
Right.
it's fine to be cautious, but with the Japanese system being so strict, I mean, they're not allowing like Americans and British and
Right.
Canadians and just normal people. You know,
Of
not
course. Of
not
course. No, it,
if you want to, I can understand a little bit because they don't like the weeaboos to come in and shit like that, because they're kind of annoying, those kind of people,
yeah.
the people that like
Yeah.
fantasize about their culture and stuff like that. Those people are a little bit annoying too. But when you have somebody like me who lived here, who had two wives, has two kids, I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old son, and then I actually worked in Japan. I was car exporting, and I taught, and I had a school and things like that. They have all my information from before when I lived here. They have my old visa, how many times I've been in and out, and you would think in those situations, if the same thing was done in America, they would allow you to come in, and they would probably give
Well,
you
you would
a
think so.
green card.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
especially if you never did anything wrong. I never did anything wrong where I got picked up by the police or anything like that. So they really have no reason in 11 years of me coming back and forth through Japan and living here a total of about 6 years of, well, 7 years now, of doing anything. But they're
Yeah.
very like hard ass on anybody for really no reason. And it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
annoying. You know.
I mean, that's one of the downfalls of I think government actually
Yeah.
is that it's very robotic.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
it's
there.
sort of it's like a vending machine. You can't say, well, I'm each end short,
Yeah. Yeah.
or it's very robotic.
Well, the problem is,
And
is
it
they're
can
causing
be.
their own default because of that. They're all the problem that they're having with the elderly people and men not getting married and all this stuff. There's so many foreigners that want to marry Japanese women, and they're not
Right.
going to be able to find, because of the herbivore culture here. They're not going to be able to find husbands. But there's a lot of
Right.
foreigners that would marry him, British guys and American guys and Mexican guys and anybody from foreign countries like the Japanese women, even if they're a chubby girl. They don't even care.
Yeah.
you know. So it's going to be
Exactly.
easy
Yeah.
for them to find wives and become productive members of society, outside of
Yeah.
being teachers. If they come
Yeah.
to the country and they learn the language a little bit and then they decide to be an office worker or go into nursing or something like that,
Right.
they can actually help the country and put more money into the GDP.
Of
If
course.
they
Yeah.
allow more foreigners in, but if they continue to try to stifle their productivity and only allow Japanese in the country and allow very few foreigners to come here, they're gonna see their own population decline because of that.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and
You know?
it's already declining. But
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. I actually politically, I sort of agree with the far right a little bit in Japan. Only because I think that they see a threat they're identifying it, they're calling it what it is. No, actually, mostly they're sort of opposed to foreign like the Korean religions and Chinese religions.
Yeah.
That's what they seem to be focused on, but that's not really the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is Islamic religion,
Exactly.
and they don't seem to be really focused on that yet, but maybe the government is.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of European Muslims right now, and there are a lot of American Muslims. So I could understand on paper why they're being strict.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, and your history of Japan is fine. I mean, you have a lot of you. I mean, you have what, like, you probably have like $10,000 invested into Nenki, probably, right?
I think from last I checked, I think I was able to get like 15,000 back.
Yeah.
They told me like
yeah.
if you leave within a year of you leaving, you can apply to actually get it back if you're a foreigner.
Right. You have
know?
you have to prove that you live outside the country and whatnot. Right now I'm up to about 7,000.
Yeah.
So I was assuming you were about twice that.
Yeah. I've paid in maybe around 45 or 50,000, but I was exporting cars for a long time in Japan, and I used to do like the Canadian or like Canada and England and mostly Australia and New Zealand. I used to export cars.
Oh, okay.
So I did that for a long time, and that's actually where I made most of my money at. So I paid quite a bit in, and then I had people that were working for me, and I paid in for them as well. So yeah, I'm hoping they said it won't take long, so they sent some stuff up to Tokyo. I sent a bunch of stuff up there, and that was on Friday last week, I think.
Yeah.
It was the 11th?
Friday.
The 16th. It was the 16th. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was last week.
That was last Wednesday?
Yeah. 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 So hopefully it won't take long, but he actually sent all the paperwork to Tokyo on Friday. Last Friday.
Well,
So
good luck with that for sure. I mean, I've taken pictures before of all the paperwork necessary to apply for a visa.
yeah.
The last time I applied for a visa, I was trying to change my marriage visa into a, what is it called? I can't remember the name of it. Parents of a Japanese child, right? And I can't do that because technically my ex-wife is the primary caregiver.
Right. Yeah.
But I had provided all this, proof and information about how much I'm paying her and these kinds of things, and it just wasn't enough apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. I tried the same thing.
So my marriage visa expires in 2017.
Okay.
But and I mean, it's kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm divorced, so I mean, you would think that the marriage visa goes away when you get divorced, but it kind of doesn't.
No, if you have your visa, it goes until the end of that visa, and then after that, you have to find out what you're going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to the point that I think Japan wants people to be here and to be productive and to work and pay money into Nenkin and Zaijin and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not going to kick an American out of the country who's working.
Right.
They're not going to do that. Hey,
right.
If I was Nigerian, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, that's not racist.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend. He's actually from Chicago, and he has actually got caught with a joint in his ashtray in his vehicle, and he was put in jail, I think, for 6 months or a year or something like that in a Japanese jail. And he's got kids here. He's been married like twice. He's lived in Japan for 20 years. He used to be a Navy guy, and he's still here. And he's been in trouble with the police quite a few times. you know, and he's still in Japan, and he's black, and it makes me kind of wonder why they're so hard on some people and they don't really give a shit about other people. But he speaks really good Japanese, and he does a lot of like business courses and stuff like that. And he's been here so long. He's just one of those people that's very good at Japanese, you know, because he's been here over 20 years. He came here the first time in like 1992 or something like that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually surprised that they gave him 6 months in jail, or did you say 6 months or a year?
I think I forget what he said, but he had actually just got out like not too long ago. He's been out for like a year or two.
That's pretty rare, I think.
Yeah.
To go to jail in Japan and then get out and stay in the country.
Exactly. Especially if you're a foreigner. Especially for a drug offense. You know. Yeah. Because but it wasn't like a lot of drugs. He just had like one joint. A police officer pulled him over in his car or something, and he had one joint. You know.
And the ashtray. Just a roach.
Yeah. And so they, you know, which kind of makes you wonder, but of course police are going to think because you're a foreigner, you're probably here doing drugs and selling drugs, and they jumped to all these conclusions, and that's part of the reason why it's hard for foreigners to come into the country, because they have all these basically conclusions that they come to about foreigners, you know.
Right. Which you know, not all the conclusions are wrong. I mean, it's okay to be cautious. Again,
but you have to think like who you're talking about. You know, I mean, if you have somebody that comes to Japan that went to school in America, and they put on their visa that they went to like Yale, you know, and they learned like English and they studied law, and then now they're in Japan teaching English, and then you're cautious about bringing them in because they could be dealing drugs. It's like you gotta use your brain a little bit, you know. It's like they don't have like a rational reasoning for like why would you think something like that? You know, it's like most people would look at that and go like, wow, he's like very well educated and he's probably a really cool person, you know. And they don't think that way. They're just like, oh, he's a foreigner. He's probably gonna, you know, beat somebody up and he's a drug dealer. And it's like, no, you know, that's try to think about if he was from Compton, you know, and he never graduated high school, you know, or something like that. Then you want to think like maybe I shouldn't allow that person into the country, you know.
Right.
But when they're college educated and they come from a decent college, and you know, I don't even care if they're white, black, or Asian or whatever, if they're from America or Canada or whatever, if they're well educated and they're coming into your country, you should let them in, you know, especially with the way they're having problems with the herbivore men, and they need more people in the country or they're going to screw themselves in the ass, you know. So they need people here, whether they're Japanese or not. But they have this weird idea that they want to keep it Japanese, you know. They want to they don't want the population to get like diluted to where it's kind of like America, where you can't really see who Japanese people are anymore. They're all mixed, you know.
Right.
And I think they worry about something like that happening. But because of that, they're getting this culture of old people, where the country is like 2/3 old people because of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean like adult diapers outsell baby diapers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like in Japan.
Yeah. Well, they have
They
have a 2-to-1 death rate, and they have had for like over 10 years now, to where like more people die than are born. Twice as many people die than are born every year in Japan.
Right.
You know, and that's the problem. They have a below replenishment rate right now, and it's been like that for years. It's been going down since 1976, but this is killing the country off, you know.
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, I can sort of sympathize with them wanting to keep Japan, you know, Japanese.
Yeah.
I can kind of, because I mean, you know, I've only lived in America and Japan, but I can say with a fair amount of confidence that Japan's culture is very homogenous.
Yeah.
and it sort of it pivots on everyone sort of doing the same thing
Exactly.
and thinking the same way.
Yeah.
And
they think it's a good
if
way.
there's enough people that don't think like that, the society will just topple.
Yeah.
It'll just fall down, basically.
Well, their idea of what their society should be will topple. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's an illusion, I believe. It's more of an illusion. They have this idea of what Japanese society is that's really a grandiose idea, and it's not really something that's true, but they have this idea of how awesome it is, and it's really not.
Right.
It's actually very destructive, you know. I've done a lot of videos on the Japanese herbivore culture and the drinking culture, and you know, all this kind of stuff that goes on in Japan. And a lot of this stuff they believe is good, and it's good parts of their culture, but it's actually very destructive, and it's not good parts. You know, it's not very good.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think, I think the main problem with Japanese culture sort of stems from the business culture.
Yeah.
It really starts there. I think. I mean, everything like tapemai and, you know, like the way you're supposed to act in public and whatnot, that's not actually that. There's no problem with that. You know, having to use, you know, keigo or tane with your relatives and stuff like that. That's all fine. It's annoying, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It really stems from like an unwarranted loyalty to your company.
Yeah.
The company you work for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really where it starts from. I mean, most of my coworkers at my company, you would think they were cult members.
Yeah.
You know, like, they're just so in love with the company.
Yeah, it's very sad.
I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah, especially when it's like a company that's not really that important. You know, it's not really anything great. You know, maybe it's like something silly. Like I worked for a place called Suge Diamond, and it was like a place that we cut down buildings with diamond, like wire and all this stuff. And I was just going around cutting holes in walls. I had like a drill, and we would cut holes in walls after they built a building for wires and tubings and stuff like that. And the guys that worked for them it was just a tiny little company. I mean, the building that the company was in was smaller than the house I'm in right now. And you would have thought they worked for some huge, you know, NTT, you know, company, and like it was awesome, and they acted like it was like a really big deal. And I was like, you know, it's like, we just cut holes in walls, dude. What the fuck? You know?
Yeah.
You know, they act like it's like a really big thing.
Yeah, a lot of my coworkers, like, I don't know, they almost like run around the company like trying to it's almost like what we call brown nosing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're just brown nosing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't know that everyone should know that what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in Japan, it's part of the culture. It's like the culture. If the person is even 1 hour older than you, the culture is brown nosing. That's the thing that's funny about it. I think that's what they worry about. Like if more foreigners came in, they would lose that part of their culture, and it's kind of like a false, like a false thing where people are pretending that they really think you're awesome and you're great and all this stuff when you're really not. And I think they really worry about losing that part of their culture. That people will more foreigners that come in, we just don't do that. You know, respect is earned, not given. And in Japan, it's just given. You know, even if the guy's a total dick, you know, you still have to just like be nice to him. You know, because he's older than you. You know, and I think that part of the culture will die off the more foreigners that come in. Because if you hire some foreigners in your company, like nursing or something like that, and you have like half of the staff being nurses are foreigners, they're not going to do that. You know,
right?
They're not going to. They're not going to come in the morning and do their morning calisthenics. You know, all that stupid shit. Yeah, you know, all that stupid shit that they do.
Oh my God, no, for real. Like my company does radio taiso every day
Yeah,
at 3:30 in the
yeah,
afternoon.
yeah. It's annoying.
I swear to God, it's fucking retarded. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
they act like little kids, but they're so like cultish.
yeah,
It's such like cult status. So
yeah,
retarded.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, before we do radio taiso, we do like a stretching routine. But
Yeah,
like, I don't do it. I
yeah,
keep my headphones on.
yeah,
And and everybody's like doing the stretching, like,
yeah,
you know, all this kind of
yeah,
stuff. You know, it's so ridiculous.
yeah. And
I think,
they still use the same tape. The tape that they've used
yeah,
is like from 1940. You know?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, how weird is that?
Yeah,
Like there's one exercise routine in this country.
yeah.
One.
Well, that's how it is with everything.
So
I've noticed. I do a lot of like vehicles. Like I do a lot of painting and car repair and stuff like that. And I've worked
yeah,
for a lot of companies over the time that I've been here, doing like auto body and stuff like that. And when I work for these companies, they have these places that they send them to, like colleges, and they have like in America, each college you would go to, each college would have a different guy that's learned different things over his career, and he would teach you his style or whatever, and some basic skills. But in Japan, it's like standard. There's a standard, and everybody
yeah,
learns the same thing. So when you go to these places and you start doing body work or you start doing something, they're like, "Oh no, that's not the way you do it." and
right.
and they try to get you to do it their way because their way is not only the best way, but it's the only way.
It's the only way.
Yeah,
You're right. It's the only way.
yeah, and that's
Have you
that's
had
fucked
any?
up. That's a fucked up thing because especially with body and paint and car work and stuff like that, it only matters the outcome. How does it look when
Right.
it's done?
Oh,
And that's the
that's
thing
brilliant.
with
Yeah.
anything. It's like it matters what the outcome is, not how it got there. And
No,
there's millions of ways to get there, and they think
right.
there's only one road. There's many ways that people do everything. Writing a book,
Okay.
being
Yeah.
in a business, doing everything. There's millions of ways to get to the end, and they think, no, 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 there's only one way, our way, and our way's the only
Well,
way. You know?
and you really hit on the problem of the way Japanese people think is they're too focused on the process and not the outcome.
Yeah,
So they're not concerned with efficiency and the way things, basically the outcome. Right?
yeah,
They're overly concerned with the way you do it, the process.
yeah,
Right? So it has to be done this way,
yeah,
and never mind if it takes 5 months instead of
exactly.
2 months, 1 month.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I told
in
a
my
story about
industry,
that before. I worked for a place, not for very long, because they pissed me off, and I almost actually beat one of the guys up because he was an old asshole bigot. But I worked for this place that did painting, and they had me do a bunch of painting and some stuff. I went around to some places with people, and it was kind of like a construction company, And I don't know if
right.
you know anything about Japanese construction company, but those guys are really assholes.
I don't know
Yeah,
anything. Yeah.
they're really bad. It's a horrible thing to do if you want to be construction in Japan. But I did like
Mm.
tile and grout and like stuff like that, work doing stuff like that. But then I ended up on this site with them after working there, and them realizing I know a little bit about what I'm doing. They put me on the site where they were going to paint a building, and they have sprayers. They have sprayers that you can paint buildings with, and they didn't want to get overspray. They didn't want to tape up things and take the time to tape things up. So they didn't.
Yeah.
So they didn't, and they decided to do this building that was like, it was 25 or 30 stories high. It was an apartment complex, and it was probably, I would say, maybe like 60 apartments long,
Mm.
something like that. And they were going to do it all with a hage.
Oh,
And it was like the little hage that's about this long, and a bucket,
yeah.
and a bucket. And when I got there, they had already been painting the building for 4 months,
Oh, gee.
and everybody was using a hage.
That's retarded.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with the abuse of Microsoft Excel by any chance
No.
in Japan? Oh
No.
my God! So if you work for like a Japanese like a normal sort of like a salaryman kind of job or whatever,
Hmm.
everyone uses Excel for everything.
Hmm.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like I used to get emailed files
Yeah.
that were Excel files,
Yeah. Me too.
and they were sending me screenshots. A
Oh.
screenshot, right? You could do it with a JPEG,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they actually put an image into an Excel file, saved it, and then sent that to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that before. They do that when I was doing the automotive, the cars, when we do the exporting and stuff. I would ask them about cars that they had for sale at some places. Like, I'd buy like damaged vehicles, and I'd have to chop them up and put them in containers for parts. And they would send me lists of like cars they had and pictures and all that, and they'd send it all on an Excel file. And that was like back in 2001. They've been doing that for
Yeah,
years, ever since Excel came out.
it's a mess. I used to work for Denso, the big Japanese. You probably know Denso actually, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Denso, they make car parts and whatnot, and I worked for their 3D CG sort of department, and the bucho of Denso Tech, right? Tech, that's
Yeah.
technology,
Yeah.
right? He was using Windows XP
Hmm.
and Excel 2003. And every time we got a file from him, it was like we had to convert it
Yeah, exactly.
into a format that could be read by modern versions of Excel, and it was a mess.
Yeah, that's
You
how
know,
that's how they are here in Japan. They get stuck in this old way, and it worked
yeah,
then. So why wouldn't it work now? That's their
right,
whole mentality about everything, and that needs to change, and it's going to change as the culture starts to continue to fall. As more and more of the culture gets older, that's gonna have to happen because they're gonna have to start bringing people in, and that part of the culture hopefully will die because it needs to.
right,
I don't think that
yeah.
part of the culture is healthy. You know.
No, I agree. I agree
Yeah.
with all that. Sorry
You
for
know.
your
Yeah.
position. Like,
Yeah.
no, I completely agree with all that. Yeah, it's a mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think they just have this idea that like most people in Japan, like I would say 80% are like that guy here.
Yeah.
And they don't really want to give that up. They think that that's the problem. I was like, oh shit.
Ah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on. There we go. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
There.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. No, but we should probably talk about Japanese wives and stuff. We've been
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we've been talking about all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been married to two Japanese women?
Yeah.
Right?
2 Japanese women. Yeah. Yeah. My last wife was. She was already married before me, and she had 2 kids, a daughter and a son.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's back with her husband now. I was with her for about 3 years and 3 months, and then I went back to the U.S. I was going to bring her to the U.S., but I couldn't because I didn't realize like the economy was so shitty. And I went back in 2009 in February. And that was no jobs. Everybody was like actually abandoning their homes.
It's
like
not much better now.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty shitty over there, and I didn't realize it was like that. I thought I was going to go there and get a job, and then I would be able to like be there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I'd save up some money, and then I'd bring them over, and it never happened.
Right.
And after
Right.
after a year of being in America, she asked me for a divorce because in Japan, if they're divorced, they can actually get like state money for the kids.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they can get money and they can get like free health care and all that stuff for the kids and everything. So she wanted a divorce for that. She said she didn't really want to divorce me, but she wanted to get like free medical for the kids. which I was like, well, there's not much I can say. I can't say yes or no because you're going to do it anyways. And I'm like 10,000 miles away. I was in Denver, you know.
Oh.
So it's not like I'm going to be able to do anything and say like, no, you can't, you know, or something, because she's going to do it anyways. She could just file for abandonment or whatever, you know. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, go ahead. So then it was like a year later. It was like in April of 2011. She stopped talking to me altogether. And then I just found out like about 2 months before I came back to Japan that she had actually went back with her ex-husband. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, she probably didn't have very many options other than that. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, being divorced with children is so frowned upon.
Yeah.
In this culture. So.
Well, she was. I think she was a. When I met her, she was a hostess, and she was working as a like a server at like a sushi, like the kodo sushi, you know, the ones that go that go around. She was like working at a sushi bar like that, and then she was a hostess. Yeah. So she was. That was basically what she was doing, and she was unskilled. And she went to school. She wanted to go to school, or she had been to school for a little while for translation. And I was able to get her into working as a translator, so that she was able to do that. And she spoke pretty decent English, and she could translate English to Japanese, and she was pretty decent at it. And she was like, well, I can't get the job. You know how they are in Japan. It's like, I can't get the job unless I get like a diploma and go to school. And in America, it's like, if I say like, I can speak Japanese, and they're like, cool, we need somebody to translate for us. You could easily just, you know, if you worked for a company and you was able to translate, they wouldn't care if you had a diploma. They just care, can you do the job? You know, and if they hire you and you can do the job, the last thing they care about is your diploma. Because a lot of people in Japan, they might have a diploma, but they still don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, you know, in my industry, and I work in I work in the 3D CG sort of industry, and we don't care at all about diplomas and degrees. And I mean, I've worked with people that are amazingly talented that dropped out of high school. Yeah. You know. Yeah. I mean, they're just fantastic. But in Japan, it's they kind of seem to be like 20 years behind America, where in the 80s and 90s, you know, everybody needed to go to college, and everybody needed a degree, and it was really important. And maybe some industries are still that way, but in Japan, you've got to have that on your, you know, ready kisho.
You got to have that. Yeah. It's really silly too, because the way the culture is set up now, it's been steadily getting, especially since like 2003 or 4, the culture for these kids is just all on the computer. And they can learn anything they want on the computer. Like, you can get on the computer and learn how to do 3D graphics and animation. And I met a guy when I was in America. I started working for a company welding, and we were building fracking trailers. And I was working on it was a 15 by 45 foot Titan plasma cutting table, and we had to do 3D graphics and do the animations and the cutouts and all that stuff. And the guy that I was working with was younger than I was, and he was a like 10th grade non-graduate from high school. And he learned how to. He was like really good at the design aspects and making things to cut out with the plasma table. And he said he learned all of it on YouTube.
Oh, of course. You
know, and he just got online and studied everything, and he got better at it and better at it. And the person that was working there before him showed him a few things, and then he just went and learned how to use the program to design. Yeah. You know, and he started. He learned everything about AutoCAD just by watching YouTube videos. Yeah. You know. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't want to disparage education, because education is important, and I hate that our education system and our collegiate system and whatnot has become so, just, you know,
Feminized.
worthless, basically.
Yeah.
And and I mean, degrees have merit,
Yeah.
to a point.
Yeah.
But I think mostly in this day and age, you can almost learn anything online for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
The information's there. Somebody already put it there.
Yeah.
And you can go and you can learn it by yourself.
Yeah.
And there's no need for. So I mean, I think my ex-wife said something interesting to me the other day. She said, are you saving for my son's name's Sagan, Sagan's college? And I said, do you really think there's going to be colleges in 15 years?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I really
No, I don't either. Well, I can't see them continuing, especially for boys, because I'm always talking about the MGTOW stuff and how it's going to it's becoming so feminized that women don't go to college to get degrees; they go to college to find a husband. And with less and less boys going to college and getting degrees, I think more boys are just going to learn stuff off the internet. They're going to learn stuff off of, like, if they do go to college, it's going to be online college, and they're not actually going to go into a physical college. So they're going to be doing online courses, and they're going to be learning more about things they need to do while they're having jobs, and they're going to not want to go to college because right now it's 68% of teachers are female in colleges, and that's going to continue to go up. And the more that goes up, there's already for years now they've geared the courses to teaching in a way that you would teach a female, and boys can't learn that way. So you're getting a lot of boys that drop out because they can't pass classes and they can't pass courses because the courses aren't geared to allowing a boy to learn. And the more that becomes evident, the less guys are going to want to go to college because they're just going to end up with debt and no degree.
Right.
And I think you're going to see in the future more boys that will just say, I'm not going to go to college. I'll just do an online course or I'll just learn something off of YouTube or something like that.
I advise against it. I went to college and obviously you did, but I advise against it these days. It's not worth the debt.
Yeah, it depends on what you're going to do. Like, I went to college and got a PhD in music education and composition, but I did that because I wanted to write music for video games and TV and movies and radio. And I wanted to teach music. I've been teaching music for about 25 years. So I just did it for teaching music, and then I got a master's in psychology because I knew I was going to come back here and I wanted to work with autistic kids. I wanted to work with the elderly, and I wanted to work with the herbivore.
How do you say autistic in Japanese? Jiheisho?
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a place down here. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called Shiawase Numura, which is it's a huge area, about maybe 1.5 miles square, and there's lots of parks and areas for them to walk around in. There's swimming pools, indoor swimming pools, and golf courses and soccer parks, and it's a really huge, cool park up here in Kobe. And
I've never heard of that.
The park is designed. The whole thing is set around a mentally challenged, autistic children. The old elderly. There's elderly homes, and there's all that stuff there. So the whole thing is set up for those people, and that's the place where I work. And a lot of the stuff that I deal with is the herbivore men and the otaku guys, and the kids that want to stay in their room and never come out and all that stuff. I deal with a lot of those kids,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. That's what I went to college for, is to come back and try to help with that. And those kids, a lot of the stuff that people really think about Japanese culture, they don't realize like entirely the reason why you have those is because these kids are opting out of the Japanese idea of what you should be, you know. And it's really sad when you start sitting down and you talk with them and you find out what they really think about Japanese culture and Japanese life, you know. And they really just, I mean, they're ready for foreigners to come here and change things, you know, and everybody else is still using Excel, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, obviously, you don't want to open the country completely, I think.
No. I think you do have to be discerning.
You need to be careful.
Yeah, you have to be discerning who you bring in, but not so discerning like they are now, because they're just ridiculous now. It's like you can only come into the country if you're married to somebody, or you can come into the country for maybe 2 or 3 years if you're going to teach English. But it's like there's friends that I had that had been here for like 10 years, and they kept getting the 1-year visa for teaching. They bounced around to different schools, you know, every year.
Yeah.
And they would get like the 1-year teaching visa. And then they would change schools about, you know, like 10 months in. They would get a new school and they would start working 2 months and they would just move. And they would keep doing that, and they did that for like 10 years. And then after the 10-year mark, you know, they would say like, well, I'd like to stay here, and they'd try to apply for like a long-term visa to like just live here, and they weren't married.
Resident.
Yeah, and they weren't married, and they would try to apply, and they would tell them no. You know, and it's like the person has lived in Japan for 10 years. What's wrong with you people? You know, especially like the person has never done anything wrong. All they've done is work here. They've paid into the healthcare system and all this stuff while they've been here, and then you're acting like they're going to do something wrong. It just it doesn't make any sense. You know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, by all means, I mean, if somebody comes from like Pakistan and you know, they want to come to Japan and you know, make a mosque or something. Okay, you should probably be concerned. But you know, somebody that's already living here, they're contributing to the culture, to to society. They're paying tax. They're paying nanking and whatnot. You know, you should definitely let them stay. I mean, that's just it's stupid. It's really stupid.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And I think it's like what we were talking about with the Excel. You know, it's kind of that's where that's coming from. That kind of like, well, it's worked for us for the last 60 years, so we're just going to keep doing that. You know, even though they don't realize it's not working for you, and it didn't work for you 60 years ago, and it's not working for you now. And they don't realize like but I was able to do it, so we're just going to keep doing that. You know, and they'll do that to a fault. They'll actually destroy their own selves and not realize like how you say, and eventually if he keeps using that Excel system, maybe eventually they won't be able to convert it into files that you can use. And he'll still continue to use it. You know. Yeah.
I have a sort of a funny story, relating to that. Do you remember about 2 years ago when Microsoft stopped supporting Windows XP? Yeah. So, my company that I worked for, Denso, they panicked.
Yeah.
they were like, no, what? There's not going to be any more support for XP, and this was in 2013.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, you're using basically a 12-year-old, operating system.
Yeah.
You know? So, everyone was panicking. They're like, "What are we gonna do?" And I'm thinking, what do you mean? What are we gonna do? Can you not upgrade? Like, why don't you understand? Like, we can upgrade this.
Yeah.
But eventually, I got this company-wide email was sent out, and it said, "Everyone, don't worry. We." About the XP problem, we've downloaded and made an offline library of all the support documents.
Oh my Lord, Jesus Christ! It's like, don't worry, we kept our 8-bit system. Don't worry.
Yeah. And they were like, we got all the Japanese translations of all the the Microsoft Windows XP, the documents and whatnot. We've got them. I'm like, you don't understand the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't understand the problem. It's like it's retarded. Oh, yeah, that's the thing that makes you want to like pull your hair out when you live here.
Oh God.
You know? Yeah, it's like I got Windows 10 on my computer and I can't stand it. And it doesn't have any like it doesn't have Excel or Abbott or any of that stuff on it. And I've got some weird shit, but I just use it.
Yeah.
I
mean, sometimes that's great, but
I don't understand how they're like that, but that's exactly how they are. It's really sad. They have this idea that it's good enough. It's always been good enough, and that's the only thing we know. And I think that's the problem. Like I was talking about when you look at the people that went to college. It's like there's only one way to do things. And when I went to college, I learned how to do everything on Excel files. So that's the only way I know how to do it, and that's the right way. So
to the point that they're importing images into an Excel file and then sending the Excel file.
Yeah, exactly. The problem that they don't understand with that is like you're making a problem for yourself by believing that some way that you've always done something is right,
Right.
And you're actually making problems for yourself by thinking that's going to work, that's going to continue to work, And
also just following orders blindly. I mean, when I joined Denso a couple of years ago, I don't work there now, but when I worked there, one of the first things I noticed was they were working on a project for Toyota. And we were making the meter panels and the control, the touch screen in these new Toyotas.
Yeah.
We were making that. And the icons for the push button, the controls and whatnot, the icons were just regular PNG files. Right?
Yeah.
And a PNG, you can compress it, and you don't have to, but you can compress a PNG, which reduces the quality. But they were trying to modify the icons.
Yeah.
And what they had lost or misplaced the original Photoshop files.
Yeah.
So what they were doing is they were opening a compressed PNG file in Photoshop and erasing drop shadows by hand.
Oh man.
by hand. I mean, like with the eraser tool. And I was like, guys, no, you can't do this, And eventually, it took about 6 months, but I convinced them to let me remake all the icon files with vector, paths, vector paths, and they were very impressed, but. It took them 6 months to come around to it. Yeah. They were literally erasing drop shadows with the eraser tool. It was insane. I was shocked.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing is like
the reason they were doing it is because someone had told them to do it.
Yeah, exactly. They don't question it. Yeah, they don't question it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I don't care if I've only worked for your place for a couple of weeks. If you tell me to do something stupid, I'm gonna be like. What? What? You want me to do what?
I called a meeting.
Yeah.
They probably thought I was like this Gaijin asshole.
Yeah.
I called a meeting like the second week I was there, and I had this like 5-page, complaint basically like here's what you're doing wrong and this is why. And man, they probably thought I was awful.
Yeah, because you're trying to change how they've always done it, and the way they do it is right, But that's what I think's funny. It's actually calling into their idea of like the way I do it is right, and the way I do it is the only way I do it is right. So with Microsoft not being supported anymore, they can't. That actually stops that from being the case because. Exactly. It can't be the only way, and it can't be the best way because it doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like that's what really makes their kind of brain lock up because they can't use that as an excuse now. It's like, this is the best way to
Right.
do it. It's like, well, if it's the best way to do it, then why does no computer system support it anymore? You
Right,
know,
right.
you know,
Exactly.
and that's something that it kind of forces them to kind of like think about what their idea of right and wrong is, and they don't like
Right.
that. They don't want to think that way.
Yeah, it's too much work, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes brain power to figure out good ways of doing things, and it's just easier and so sort of cheaper
Yeah.
to just follow orders. And
Yeah.
I sympathize with them a little bit, but my main goal is efficiency and outcome.
Yeah.
And I tell every time I go to a meeting, almost always I say like koritsu, like it's about efficiency. Like efficiency is important. How quickly can you do a thing to a particular level of quality?
And that's not Japan.
Like that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's they're so anti that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they'll come up with some design for a vehicle or something, and they'll take like 2 years just to get it into like a thing where they think about maybe making it. Like the Prius. Yeah. They were actually working on the Prius in the 90s. In the early 90s. They didn't actually produce the car until almost 2000.
Yeah.
So it took them like almost 10 years to bring that to fruition.
And the car industry is one of the few industries where Japan is still sort of dominant.
Yeah, they're the leader.
I think really just because the competition is horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're a lot of the stuff that they're doing it trying to do it cheaply, and that's what's fucking them up now. Is they're trying to keep the quality and make it just as cheap. And that's the problem that they're having. That's why they had that huge thing with Toyota and the company that made
the brakes.
Yeah, the brakes, and also the company that made the airbags. Where they recalled all the cars that had the airbag problems.
I didn't hear about that.
There's
recently.
Yeah, there's a company in Japan that makes airbags for all the cars, like all the Japanese cars. And they were having malfunction with them, and people died from them. And they had to take them out and replace them because they were having a malfunction with these airbags. And this company I don't know if they went out of business or something, but they had to find companies to replace the airbags with. And it was a really, really fucked up thing. But it's because they it's how they have in Japan. They have like one company that supplies all companies, and that's a big problem when you don't have multiple companies. Yeah, there's
company I work for.
Yeah, there's a problem when you have one company that does everything for everybody, because there's no competition, and it makes it to where you can charge whatever you want for whatever you're doing because you have no competition in the market, which is never a good thing for business. It's a great thing for a company, because they're going to make a lot of money, but it's never a good thing for the industry itself, because people lose out from that, and you end up with things like what happened with Toyota, where you end up with all these people that are they're getting hurt. People are literally losing their lives and dying because one company can do whatever they want because they have no competition.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we'll probably get hate for all this. I'm sure the comment section will be filled with stuff because we're two people that have lived in Japan a combined probably 20 years, and obviously we don't know anything about it, right?
No.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. The weeaboos no more. So.
No, I mean, exactly. No, I mean, when I moved here, I was pretty positive about Japan.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was the utopia for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah. A lot
right?
of people do.
But I was positive. I was like, there appear to be things that they're doing in this country that are good. Like after the tsunami,
Yeah.
no one was looting and stealing and
Yeah.
robbing,
Well,
and
that's not
I thought
something
that
that.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not something that
But
happens
when you
here.
live, yeah, yeah, but when you figure out why they weren't looting and stealing, that's when it clicks,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
The reason they weren't looting and stealing is because stealing is against the law, and they obey the law.
Yeah.
I mean, like in my neighborhood, I go out I go out at night, at 12 and midnight or whatever,
Yeah.
and there are people standing at the shingle,
Yeah.
the crosswalk,
Yeah.
and they're standing there because it says don't walk.
Yeah. That's a big thing that annoys
There's
the
no
fuck out of me.
cars. There's
Yeah.
no cars.
Yeah. I've seen them do the same thing when the lights are like green, and they come up to the thing where it's a one way, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody around. There's no cars or anything. It might even be 2 in the morning, and you'll see them stand there, and they'll wait. It's like, what the fuck are you waiting for? It's like 10 feet across to the other side. There's no cars anywhere, and you're waiting there because what? Why?
Sometimes I actually say like, "Kuruma konayo."
Yeah. Yeah, it's like,
They're just like,
yeah. I sometimes tell them, like, I'll sometimes come up to the thing and I'll look both ways and I'll go, "Doshiten?" Quiet desu ka? I'll tell them stuff like that where it makes them feel stupid because you're like, "Kuruma kunai yo. Quiet desu ka?" Are you scared? Quiet desu ka? And then I just go, and they kind of like it like freezes their brain because you can see they're like looking like, he's right, there's no cars, and he just went and he didn't get hit. Maybe I should go. And they sit there thinking so long the light actually eventually does turn red, and then they go, and then they look at you like you're the dumb one,
Right. A funny example of this is if you have ever tried to find subtitles, Japanese subtitles for a movie.
Yeah.
Like if you were gonna watch Game of Thrones with your girlfriend or something, and you wanted to find the Japanese subtitles or Lord of the Rings or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you go to a subtitle website, there's like 100 Arabic, right?
Yeah.
as subtitles for Lord of the Rings, and there's like 200 in like Finnish, and like there's so many subtitles. But if you go to Japanese, it's like 0.
Yeah.
Right? Why? It's not that they don't like. It's not that they hate Lord of the Rings. They like it.
Yeah.
But stealing and making subtitles is against the law.
Yeah.
So there's no subtitles.
Yeah. It's just retarded. It makes no sense.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that has always like really annoyed me about Japan is that whole mindset that they have. And that's actually what's I believe is probably going to cause the Japanese culture to fall. Is probably. That sense of we have to do it because reasons.
Right.
Right. It's like, well, why do you do that? Because reasons.
Right.
And it's like I'm an atheist. And I don't like when people are like, I believe in God and I believe in all this stuff, and then you're like, why? You're like, well, because my family believed in it, and because I was raised that way, and I just think it's true. It's like, yeah, but why would you believe it? What reasoning could you have to believe it?
Right. Well,
and they don't have really any reasons. It's just the way it is, and that's the thing. They got the shogunai. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm an atheist as well, but so I understand. Yeah, it's basically just like believing something because reasons. That's what they do.
Yeah.
It's very I'd say Japanese culture is very automatic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very repetitive. You basically do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
when I go to work, I see the same people that I don't know. I don't know them,
Yeah.
but I've seen them for like a whole year,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like 2 years,
Yeah.
like every day.
Yeah. And
And
you
I
just
know
say
their
Ohio
faces, they see
gozaimasu.
me.
Ohio gozaimasu.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
it.
no. What I mean is not even not coworkers, just
Oh, just
people on the
people.
street.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On the street,
Yeah.
like
Or on the
they're going to
trains and
work
on
at
the
the same
buses and
time.
everything.
Yeah,
Same people.
and we had the same schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, there's guys and girls that I see literally every day, and I've never said a word to them, but we know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that in America. I mean,
Yeah.
in America, your schedule is anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Like uh, you might be late to work, you might be early. You're never on the same schedule.
Yeah. Well, it's
Right.
because
In
everything's
Japan.
so timed here.
In
You
Japan,
get on
have
the same train.
schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody
and
gets
if
on the
I'm
same
late,
train to get to work.
to the point where if I'm late to work, the people that I see, I don't pass them on the street, but they're waiting in front of the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When I
Yeah.
get out, I'm like, oh, that must mean I'm late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that's going to be the case until they get here, and you start to realize it. And you don't even notice that at first. It takes you like a year of being here, or a year and a half of being here,
takes a little bit.
before you notice that, because you have to have you have to work for like an English school or something for about 6 months or something, and then you start eventually to see that. Because like a lot of the things with foreigners is we end up getting on the same train every day. We stand on the same platform. So we come down the stairs and we stand in the same spot. And when you do that for 6 months, eventually, like, you realize like where I need to stand on the train to where I go up the right stairs to lead me to my destination. So you start to learn where you need to get on the train. And when you start standing on the same train, you realize that everybody else is doing that too. And eventually you realize that everybody on the train when you go home at night and everybody that's on the train when you come are the same people.
They're almost the same people.
Yeah.
There may be a little give and take, but
yeah. There might be like 5 or 6 people that are different in the morning and at night.
Right. It's incredible. I mean,
yeah.
It's
pretty much the same people.
Maddening.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It gets you into this mindset where you're just like you want to. I mean, you can almost see the suicide culture and stuff because it makes you just want to pull your hair out.
No, I know. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I kind of along those lines. When I worked for a company in Sapporo about 4 years ago, they had a policy where if you were late, even by a second, they would take 1/3 of your pay for that day.
Right? That sounds like a good plan.
Very, very,
a good way to steal money from your employees. They already they already make you work.
Late once. Yeah, exactly. I was late once, and I was literally late by I don't know how much because I clocked in at 9.
Yeah.
Right, and it said 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And it didn't say like how many seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But technically, I should have clocked in before 9.
Oh, okay.
Because after 9, that's late.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like this lady, this waiter, she comes to my desk and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, you were late this day, and I'm like, what? No, it says 9, right? We're supposed to be here at 9, so I was here at 9, and she's like, no, but technically you're late if you clock in at 9, so your salary is going to be reduced by 1/3, 33%, Yeah. And I'm like, so 33%, you're going to take 30%. Well, then I'm going to go home.
Exactly.
And I'm going to come back at 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I did. And they couldn't do anything about it. They were just like, no.
Yeah, I'll clock in at 8:45 every day, and I'm going to leave at 2 p.m. in the afternoon then.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. Yeah. I hope the weeaboos watch this because.
Yeah, me too.
You need to understand.
Yeah. Well, they have this. They have this idea of how they really believe they know how Japan is by watching like Pikachu and reading manga.
Yeah, fucking anime and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
they think that's how Japan is, and you're going to come here and everybody's going to be in cosplay.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, in the company I work for currently, actually, almost all my coworkers are otaku.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I mean, it depends on where you work, but you can get into sort of an otaku culture, kaisha. But
yeah,
but the culture largely is not like that. I
yeah.
mean, even the words they use in anime are not normal
No,
Japanese.
yeah,
You can't even learn Japanese by watching anime because it's
yeah.
like always it's.
Well, I mean, they're having a problem now actually in Japan because they have this weird thing where they don't want to use people's names in anime because I don't know why they have this thing where they don't want to use real names for characters in anime. But the problem that they're having is they've come up with these weird names for Japanese anime, and people in Japan are starting to name their children those names, and that's a problem for Japan. So they have these people that are naming their kids after like famous Japanese manga characters.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. There are a lot of weird names because you can basically make any name you want
Yeah,
with with kanji and whatnot.
yeah,
The funniest thing about Japanese is this: even Japanese people don't know each other's names.
yeah,
If they read it, they
yeah,
don't know. Like,
yeah,
unless it's just a really common name like like Steve,
yeah,
or something like
yeah,
that. They have no idea.
yeah,
And the myoji, if it's a really common last name, maybe they can guess it right, but they have to guess.
yeah,
They can't read it.
yeah, yeah. That's
I mean
that's something that I thought was really funny because like even my ex-wife's mother and my ex-ex-wife's mother, she had like the little the computer dictionary, and they have to use that to actually they have to use that to actually read the newspaper because they use kanji that lots of them have to like look in the kanji and they have to find out what they're talking about. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Crossing.
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
How you guys doing? Is this
Good,
live?
good. Yeah. Well, no, it's not live. I can't do lives. You know that. I'm
yeah.
I'm recording it though. I'm recording it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put it up after we're done.
Alright, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Ben.
you, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another Gaijin in Japan?
Yeah.
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 Are you Japanese?
No.
No.
No. She's actually gonna move to. She's thinking of moving to Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She's
Is
from
that where
She's
you
from
live?
New York. She's a New Yorker.
Yeah, from the United States.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. She's a New Yorker.
New York.
So how's the conversation going so far?
Good.
Sorry I interrupted.
Good. We're throwing the weeaboos under the bus.
Yeah. We're gonna get a lot of hate. A lot of
Yeah.
hate for that.
Yeah. The thing that makes it to where I don't get as much hate is I don't put subtitles in. If I put subtitles in where it was all in Japanese, that would get me so much hate on my channel because most of my videos are not really rosy colored glasses talking about unicorns and fairy tales and sprinkling fairy dust everywhere. Which is what a lot of the J vloggers do. They get on the internet and they talk about how great it is in Japan and how wonderful everything is. And if you say anything bad about Japan, like the trains are really crowded or anything like that, they'll just fucking attack you. They attack you and like you're talking bad about Japan and how dare you, like all this kind of shit. And it's really hilarious.
Fall on your sword.
Yeah, it's really hilarious how they really believe that you can't say anything about Japan bad because nothing's bad about Japan. Everything about Japan is amazingly awesome.
Well, I mean, I think the average weeaboo's life is so lonely and like void of any content that they have to believe that Japan is this utopia.
Yeah.
What's a weeaboo? Is that like someone who just like is in love with the thought of Japan?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually, what it is it's somebody that like obsesses with the culture. They speak some Japanese, but they actually mispronounce it. They mispronounce it. They're like arigato, that kind of stuff. You know, where you're like, yeah, exactly. Where yeah, they're just like totally like they mispronounce everything. They misuse the words. You know, they say like female pronouns at the end of sentences when they're speaking to men, you know, things like that, because they just don't know any better. And then they use words from comic books like it's really Japanese, and then Japanese people look at them like an idiot, you know.
If you speak Japanese that they use in anime, you will seem like the biggest tool. Like
yeah, they'll think you're a complete dork. Because it's not, not even the way sentence structure goes in English, in Japanese, you know.
Not at all.
Yeah,
That's too funny.
Yeah, it's freaking hilarious. It would be like going around and trying to speak English from watching South Park episodes.
Yeah, or like you know? Clint Eastwood westerns or something. You know, it'd be so weird. Or you know, I often you hear like in Japanese anime like kimi, you know, let's say it's the word that means you, but no one uses kimi.
Yeah, exactly. It's only in anime.
Never.
Yeah.
You know, or like ore, you know, like that means me. Like,
yeah.
You almost never say ore.
Yeah. Yeah. You only hear stuff like that in anime, and you hear it in music. Like in songs.
Exactly. The love songs.
Yeah, in love songs. Yeah, they'll say it in love songs and stuff, but it's like artistic words. They're artistic words. And that's these really anime kids, these weeaboos will do that. They'll use like artistic words in everyday conversation, and it makes all the rest of the Japanese people that are listening to them just shake their head and go, "God, what a fucking idiot." You know.
Another really funny word is genki, right?
Yeah.
So like everybody says like genki desu ka? Right?
Yeah.
But you almost never say that. Like
no.
Almost like if you're talking about someone's baby, you're like, I guess I'm like genki desu ka? You know, like you would almost never say it in a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Right? But yet that's actually the name of many textbooks.
Yeah. Genki. Yeah. Genki. Yeah. Yeah, well, they do the same thing. Like a lot of the new teachers that come to Japan, they learn that word, and they'll come in, and the first thing they tell their students in the morning is "Mina genki desu ka?" You know, and everybody's like, "Hi, so desu," you know, and it's like you're the English teacher. Why are you teaching them anime stuff?
It's so funny, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to ask somebody how they're doing, you don't say like "genki desu ka." You say like "choshi wa dou desu ka?" You know, like how's your state? How's your status? You know?
Yeah.
But you don't even ask that. Is the funny thing. Like
most of them don't care.
People so rarely ask personal questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing that they don't get. The weeaboos don't get. They'll try to come over here and ask all kinds of personal questions to them and make them uncomfortable. They'll be very uncomfortable with talking to you because you're asking so many personal questions, and you're telling them, like, you may be speaking to them in English, and you'll be telling them about your personal life. And Japanese people don't do that. They don't want to know about your personal life, and they don't care about it. You know, so when you start telling them all this stuff about your personal life, about your wife and your kids and your dog, you know, they're like, "I don't care. Stop talking." You know?
Well, they don't care, but they also don't want to hear it because like it gets them involved. You know? And they don't want to get involved.
Yeah, they don't want to get involved in your life. You know, they only want you to do your job at work and get done what needs to be done, and that's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, basically. That's pretty funny. Hey, I'll be right back. I'm going to open another beer real quick. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how are you doing, Crossing?
I'm doing alright. How long has Ben been in Japan for?
I didn't ask. I think he's been in Japan for a while because he's was married and divorced now.
Oh, in Japan.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Hey,
how long have you been in Japan for?
About 4.5. 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
5 years. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been kind of a mess actually. I mean, people who want to come and live in Japan need to know that the salaries and the career opportunities are incredibly limited.
Yeah.
If you're skilled in some area and you're just a wizard at something, then you can get a job. If not, it's gonna be really hard. And the jobs that you do get, the salaries will be pretty low.
Wow.
That's really the take-home message I think that people need to understand is that Japan is fun to live in, but it's miserable to work in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one reason why I do a lot of stuff like the exporting of cars, because you can make a lot of money, and my money isn't dependent on Japan culture. It's depending on foreign cultures like Australia and America and stuff like that. So you're making money off of people in other countries and not money off the people in Japan. Because if you're going to try to do that, you're not going to make much money.
Yeah, I mean, and you're smarter than I am in that respect because I mean, my industry, I have a skill, and I've sort of like, what do you call it? Pigeon? I don't know. I've sort of like
pigeonholed yourself.
Put myself in. I put myself in a situation where I have to work in this industry doing this thing. I do modeling and 3D modeling and CG and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I have to do that thing. I can't change careers at this point. I'm 35 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've sort of pigeonholed myself into this industry, and in Japan, your options are incredibly limited.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've been incredibly lucky to get the jobs that I have gotten.
Yeah.
But my salary is about half what I would make in America. What I was making in America 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sad. That's why a lot of people think like, well, I hear all these weeaboos talk about like I'm gonna go to America or I'm gonna go to Japan and I'm gonna be like a comic book illustrator,
No,
or I'm gonna go to Japan and I'm gonna be a video game designer.
Oh God, that's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't get it. They think it's like a great job.
Yeah. No. You will sleep under your desk, and that's not a joke.
Yeah.
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 Well, you will sleep under your desk.
Yeah. You'll live at work if you do that. The average work week in Japan for normal people, and that's why they say the average work week is 90 hours. But if you do a job like that, you're looking at like 170 or 200 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
And you won't get paid for a lot of that. A lot of the times you'll be doing overtime work and not getting paid for that overtime work.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
You'll get paid for about maybe 70 hours of the 200 hours that you work.
Right. If you want to work in the game industry, you should live in America.
Yeah.
You should stay in America.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't move to Japan if you want to work in the game industry because you will become a slave.
Literally.
Yeah. And I mean, the game industry in America is also pretty bad. I mean, I've been lucky in that respect. I worked for great companies in America. I worked for the company that Twisted Metal, the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made the PlayStation 3 version of that.
Oh, cool.
My team. Yeah. So and they were great. They were an amazing company that I worked for. Actually, the shirt I'm wearing right now is actually their logo. Eat, Sleep, Play. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah. So, great company, but the game The Last of Us, right? That's, made by Naughty Dog in LA.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy that worked there, and he said that the minimum work week was about 70 hours.
Yeah, man, that's just crazy.
Yeah, he quit.
Yeah, those games, all the graphics process or whatever, and how much power it takes to, I don't know. They're just so much more upscaled now. That's why I think the indie gaming scene is kind of booming a little bit. Yeah, simpler games that don't take as long, but the budgets aren't to make. to make, and the budgets aren't as big. Like you don't need like I don't know how much money you need to make these AAA titles, but we're talking millions of dollars.
A lot. I can tell you, Twisted Metal for PS3 sold about 600,000 to 1 million. I'm not sure, but not quite 1 million copies.
Right.
And it didn't make a profit.
That's crazy.
How do you sell something 1 million times
Not make profit. Yeah.
No, and that's PlayStation 3. Imagine Xbox 360 and PS4. Imagine those platforms and the increased graphics and all that other crap.
Well, that's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about with Japan. If you sell like even 500 of them or 1,000 of them, and you realize you're not making a profit, then you raise how much they cost, so that you do make a profit. Simple as that. You don't let it happen 1 million times. That's ridiculous. But that's Japan.
Well,
that's 100% Japan.
DLCs are so big.
Yeah.
DLCs they're trying to make that like more of a thing where you can keep buying more value into the game. But so that way, a game like by the time you're done buying the DLC, it's like $150 game basically if you get all the additional content. Yeah.
That's actually a lot of the complaints about Star Wars Battlefront, the new Battlefront game. Has a lot of DLC, but if you want to get everything, you have to pay about $200. I think.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I mean, God, you should make a game,
Yeah.
if you make a patch or something, or if you make an add-on or something, well, that's fine. You can charge for that. That's fine. But Jesus, DLC is out of control.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I have another friend that he lives in, or I think she's from Denver, and she's a game designer as well. She works for a company designing games, and she said that they do a lot of that now with the games where you pay a lot of money, sometimes like $120 for a game, and it's not even the full game. You have to buy the things to finish the game. So if you buy the original system, you can't actually play the game. You need other things to finish playing the game.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the freemium model is pretty popular. A good example of this is Hearthstone, Blizzard's game Hearthstone. Have you played that?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
But I know Blizzard.
It's basically a card game. It's kind of based on the characters from World of Warcraft or Warcraft, whatever. And
Sure.
and it's free to play, but they get you to buy packs of cards. Right. And I mean, you sink money into that game like nothing else. I mean, it's ridiculous. I probably spent $200 in 3 months.
That's the last thing. I've never done any of that. Like
me either.
I have an Xbox 360, but I don't have Xbox Live or anything. So I'm like really weird that way. When I got into gaming, I got my Super Nintendo when the PlayStation 1 and N64 was already out. So I've always been behind the generation. So I don't even have like the new consoles. And that's the kind of way I like it, because when you go to buy games, it's a backlog. I get to get all the complete editions and all that other stuff, where the DLC is already all included, and it works out better for me.
Yeah, I actually don't advise people to own consoles, period. I think consoles are a waste of money. I mean, PC is the best. PC and Keitai smartphone is the best. It's the best. Basically the best systems right now. I mean, even when the PlayStation 4 was released, it was inferior to PC stats.
Yeah.
And now it's massively inferior.
And
when I developed,
about it.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. When I developed games for the PlayStation 3, it was, you're always fighting with the system, with the console, to try to get memory. Oh God, we don't have memory, so we got to do this. And, it's a huge hurdle to get over just to make games for these systems. And so I'm a big PC advocate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's how most people are nowadays. They play mostly on online games. It's funner. It's funner anyways when they can get on the computer because a lot of the stuff you can do online with other people.
Yeah.
So you can actually do Twitch streams and you can play video games with somebody in another country.
right.
At the same time, that kind of stuff. And it's the console is really kind of a thing where you're playing by yourself,
Yeah,
kinda,
it can be.
kind of lonely. You're sitting in your house alone, with a beer,
Right.
with your
Right.
cats,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, cats.
Yeah.
Steam is huge. Steam.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can actually like get online and play, you might be in a game where you're playing with like 10 other people,
Right.
and everybody's in a different country, and you have like these friends that you play games with all the time, and you don't even know them, but it makes you feel like you have friends.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of cool.
Online games.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that way when you have PC games,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, like, sort of what I was saying earlier about consoles being underpowered. Take VR for example. Do you guys know about Oculus?
Oculus Rift.
Yeah, the Rift, the Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
So and Sony has the Sony Morpheus. Do you know about that?
No.
I've heard about a similar thing, right?
Yeah. It's basically Sony's own VR headset that they're developing,
Right.
but it requires 120 frames per second to do fluid head tracking and whatnot. And you can't get 120 frames per second out of anything these days.
Yeah.
Nothing. And it's being developed for the PlayStation 4. Like you can't you can't get 120. You can half it. They have actually a mode where you can half the frame rate and get it to 60. But even at 60 is really difficult to maintain
they barely
60.
do 60.
Yeah, barely. Yeah, so it's just a complete waste of the time. Yeah. So this is where
they're looking for double the frames per second.
Yeah.
The system itself, like on average, will maybe do like 50.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Oculus headquarters in Tokyo just like 3 weeks ago, and I was talking to them, and we were just kind of like, had a sort of a meeting with those guys, and I was like, and I asked them, I just totally asked them, I was like, how do you expect to get 90 frames per second? Oh, the Oculus, the final version is 90 FPS. And I was like, how do you expect us to get 90 frames per second out of these engines? And they were like, well, they don't have an answer. It's just
That's so fucking scary.
Yeah.
That they don't figure those things out.
Yeah, they don't think about that until it's done. Until it's done, and they realize it doesn't work.
Well, that's what happens. Like, what is it? One of the Batman games. Like, there was some major problems with the latest one. And a lot of people, not just that, but what was it? Another Assassin's Creed game, and there was all these different problems. And they know that it has problems when they send it out. They're just like, oh well, hopefully it won't be as bad. It's like, no, it's horrible.
Right. Yeah, all kinds of bugs and problems and whatnot.
Yeah. But I guess that the Oculus Rift is going to be more better suited for PC then.
Oh, definitely, of course, yeah. I mean, they may port it, not port, but they may make an Oculus that it can be used with PlayStation, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's primarily a PC peripheral.
Yeah.
Because PCs can be upgraded, they can become faster.
Yeah.
And the engines, basically we only have two engines right now, Unity and UE4. And those are being sort of tuned and optimized to be used with VR. VR is sort of tricky because you have to render things from two cameras, because humans have two eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it has to be optimized, to render everything twice. So you're not just trying to get 90 frames per second. You're trying to do 90 frames per second twice.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and there's no good answer right now. Anyway, that's sort of a rabbit trail. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm derailing your conversation like hardcore.
Yeah.
All into that, but I got. Do you think that it'll be successful before we just get off of it? Then you guys can talk about whatever. Like the Oculus Rift.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You think it'll catch on?
Definitely, yes. Not just Oculus, but also the Valve is making the Vive headset.
Yeah.
And it's laser tracked. It has like two what they call lighthouses, I guess. Like you put one in one end of your room and one at another, and it actually laser tracks your rotation and position tracking. It's fantastic. The Oculus system is optical, so it uses a camera to track infrared spots on your HMD, head-mounted display. Yeah, I mean, it's all great technology, and it's fantastic. And when you actually experience it, there's this thing called presence. What we call presence.
Right.
When you actually feel like you are in an environment.
Wow.
Right. So you can play a game, right, and it's scary. Maybe there's a dragon or something like that. But when you experience presence, it's like it tricks the part of your brain that is like mushiki. What is that?
He's got to think in English again.
Yeah.
Mushiki.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's when you've lived here as long as we have. It's hard for us to start trying to think again. You start A lot of people don't realize you start losing English words. Because you speak so much in Japanese all the time, you can't think of what it would be called in English anymore.
It's funny.
So your subconscious is tricked into believing that a thing is real, and you experience presence. Is what they say. So you can be standing in a white room, but you're 20 feet above the floor, and you feel fear, right? Because you're experiencing presence, and this happens with VR. So just because of that alone, I think VR has a very bright future. I think that's where movies and games and almost everything we interact with needs to be VR.
Oh man,
I think
that's good to do for porn.
Have you seen the Japanese? What they're doing? Like they have
No.
they. Oh my god! Oh god, I'm so embarrassed to even say it, but they have this little jack off machine, right? It goes like this, I guess. And if you put on the VR headset, it's like a little anime character that's jerking you off. I'm serious. I saw it. I was at a VR conference and that was there.
Yeah. It's hilarious. That would only happen in Japan. You wouldn't go to a Comic-Con and see some shit like that.
No. I mean,
you might see it. You might see it in a back room somewhere or something, but it's on the main floor in Japan. Yeah, right. It's no, this is really cool, and it's oh Jesus, dude, that's stuff that we would be no, don't do that.
That made me tear. That was so funny.
Yeah, that's shit. They really have no idea. That's not something you should do in Japan. For how everything has to be just so, and you have to be very particular about everything. They really have no conscious idea that that's not something you should do.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Who gives a damn? Let's just put it out.
Yeah, you'll literally walk into something and they'll have like sex dolls or something, and they'll be oh, this is a new product, and everybody's no.
Well, the funniest thing about living in Tokyo is if you, and I avoid going here, but if you go to Akihabara,
Yeah.
You know Akihabara?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah.
If you go there, it's like the most otaku, anime nerd place in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And the whole city. I mean, actually, if you want to buy computer parts, that's the best place to go. But
Yeah.
but it's a complete mess. Like, if you walk through Akihabara, you would think that Japanese people are having all kinds of sex, but they're not.
Yeah.
Well, we know from Shi-Nu that they're not. So
Yeah.
No, they're not. There's tits everywhere in Akihabara. They're just like fucking. There is much more cleavage in fucking Akihabara than any other place in Japan. But see, if you're a foreigner and you go to Akihabara, you would think like, oh, Japanese people really love sex. They're all about it. But that's not the case. Like, Japanese people don't have any sex.
Exactly. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
The sex,
You have a lot of foreigners that come to Japan, and you get the Gaijin chasers. And
yeah.
when people like me and you speak about the real life Japan and about herbivore men and about how the people in Japan don't want to have sex and how people are not becoming married and stuff like that, these weeaboo or people who think that Japan is really good, they live in this little bubble. They don't see that,
Right.
and they really think
Right.
like, no, Japan's not like that. They don't know what they're talking about, and it's because they're looking at it from the other side. They're doing things like going to Akibaha, and they don't think that
Yeah.
that's not like the real Japan.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, Akihabara is like a micro bubble
Yeah.
of Japanese culture, and they think that is Japan. It's
Yeah.
just not.
And that's
not at
actually
all.
that area is actually where you find those machines that sell dirty panties. And there's people who think you can come to Kobe and find those machines in Kobe, and you can find them all over Japan and stuff like that. They're in like otaku areas, and that's only where you find it at. You find it in that area, you know.
That is so I mean that's ridiculous. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but there's so many weeaboos that think they're gonna come here and see the vending machines with all kinds of crazy shit in it,
Right.
and you don't. You only if you go to an area where it's like freaky shit you see, that's where you'll find it. You know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah, weeaboos are funny people, man. I'm sure we'll get a lot of weeaboo hate from this video, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You get the American Manga Society.
Yeah.
No, Japan language is exactly like it is in manga magazines. You don't know what you're talking about. Even though you
Right.
live there, I get that all the time. People put on my videos and stuff. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, you just
they're living in like Minnesota.
Yeah, and they've never been to Japan. They don't know anything about Japan. I get the same thing because I used to export cars, and you get all these guys in America that talk about skylines and all this stuff. I actually got in an argument the other day because I was watching a video from Motor Trends TV, and some guy bought a Skyline GTST from Japan, and he had it in America, and they were doing a test drive. And the guy was telling him, like, I wish it was a 6-speed. He's like, do you ever wish it was a 6-speed? And I put in the comment section, I was like, in Japan, normally what we do here in Japan is we take the Spec R Sylvia transmission, which is a 6-speed, and put it in the GTSTs. And we just, there's a spacer that you can use for the transmission, for the bell housing, to put that transmission onto the Skyline motor.
You joined to it.
Yeah. There's like a little spacer that you put on there that you screw on the back of the motor because it was a 20. It's a 2-liter, so it's a 20 RB. So you put that on there, and then from there you can attach the transmission on it. And a lot of people do it in Japan, so you can get a 6-speed. And some guy got on there, and he's like, "You're lying. You don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, I've actually chopped Skylines in half. I've completely dismantled them for parts, and I've done this thousands of times, and I raced and I drifted, and I've done all this stuff in Japan. I've built cars my entire life, and then you get this like weeaboo fucking 21-year-old that reads Japanese magazines about Japanese cars or something, and they really think they know what they're talking about, and they have no idea, So that's typically what you end up having with a lot of the weeaboo culture, because weeaboo isn't just comic books; it's like everything. Anything that has to do with Japanese culture, they have like a little otaku thing that they like. Like some of them like manga, some of them like clothing, some of them like the Japanese like dresses and stuff. Things like that, and they have these little the little areas that they like, and they'll think they know everything about that, like the tea ceremony or something, and they're basically they're weeaboos about that,
or they're like they'll explain to you exactly how the samurai sword is made.
And they actually know nothing about it.
The oil, it bends because the spine is less, all this nonsense. But they never actually know anything about like economics, like Japanese economics or politics.
Any important shit.
And they don't actually know anything about what they're talking about, really, because what they do is they get it from another person who wrote a book that never went to Japan either. It's like secondhand knowledge, and they're talking about something. It's like those old things that people do where it's like, my brother's brother told me about such and such, and this is true, and it's like that's not the case. And when you talk to somebody that's really in Japan and they tell you how it really is, and then you say, no, that's not the way I know it to be, that just shows your ignorance, because that's also why a lot of Japanese people, especially like in immigration and stuff, they really don't want to bring in weeaboos either, because weeaboos annoy Japanese people too.
Oh yeah, and they don't really contribute to the society all that much.
Yeah, they want to know why you're here,
Exactly.
So like if they think you're like a weeaboo, they kind of want to get you over here, let you teach English a little bit, do your little anime bullshit that you're gonna do, and then get the fuck out.
Right.
Basically, that's what they want. They want, because a lot of people just want to come here to kind of to dick around in the society and kind of go around to like crazy manga houses and anime parlors and like the maid clubs and stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
And then they want to go back to America and tell everybody about everything they've seen.
Exactly. There are two types of foreigners here. There are short-term and long-term.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, people that are here for, like, 6 months to a year or whatever are much different than people that have been here for 5 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah.
I've heard it called Gaijin versus Gaijin. Like, we kind of size each other up, when we see each other. Like,
sometimes they get this really annoying thing that they do. I've seen a lot of foreigners do this, where they'll ask you like, how long have you been here?
Oh my god, that's the first question.
And if you say like, well, I've been here like 2 years or 3 years, lots of them will like not talk to you.
Right.
They're like, well, you don't know nothing yet. They get this like chip on their shoulder, like, well, I've been here 15 years,
Yeah, totally.
that kind of shit, and you're like, dude, fuck off, It's like, man, it's like it's so stupid to be so fucking arrogant about shit totally. Like that, and that's how a lot of them are. A lot of them get that way, but then you get the opposite thing from the weeaboos. They'll come to Japan for like 6 months or a year and teach English. And then they'll go back to America, and they'll have videos that they put up on the internet talking about Japanese culture. Right. Like they know what they're talking about. And then when you get on their video and say, "That's not how it is. You don't know even what you're talking about." And he's like, and then they say like, "I lived in Japan." And he's like, "Yeah, you lived in Japan for a year." You know, you don't know
This
shit.
guy, his name was, I think he lived in Sweden or something, and his name was Zeppelin or something like that. Zeppelin in Japan. Have you seen any of those videos?
No. Have you seen any of the Ryan Boundless ones?
No.
Ryan Boundless is one of the guys that like he gets a lot of criticism because he talks truthfully, and he's one of those kind of guys. It's not only that he's talking truthfully, it's that he's very kind of sullen, and he seems like he's a very kind of depressed kind of guy. So the glass is always half empty. So everything that he says about Japan is kind of that way. It's like the glass is always half empty, and he's always like, "This is bad about Japan." And he's living here. He lives here. I think he lives in like Osaka somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you watch Ryan Boundless's channel, you'd see like some of the stuff he says. It gets so many Japanese people pissed off. You know.
I'll have to look it up. Ryan
Boundless.
Ryan Boundless.
Yeah.
I'll look that up later.
Yeah. Every video he puts up. Yeah. Every video he puts up, it's like the illusion of Japan and all that, like stuff like that. It's just it's like clickbait. Like the fucking just the name on the video makes weeaboos want to jump on there and be like, "You're an asshole," you know what you're talking about.
Outsell, baby diapers.
Yeah. Yeah. He'll throw shit up like there, and he'll talk about like Japanese girls, and he'll talk about like working as an English teacher, and he's like, "You should never come to Japan. You should never be an English teacher." All this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah. Exactly. That's how I am. And he says that stuff, and then you get all the people that want to come to Japan and be a weeaboo and teach English and use that to like do all their shit in Japan, and they get pissed off at him.
Yeah.
And even other J vloggers will actually watch his stuff and get pissed off that he's saying all this stuff. Like Victor and Scott. Scott.
Give me a flake, man.
Yeah.
Give me a.
Yeah, and Scott in Osaka. Scott.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Scott is his channel's name is Unrested.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, if you should watch some of his stuff. He's pretty cool too. He's a designer as well. He does graphics and all that stuff. Yeah, he's really cool. But he always talks about him too, about Ryan Boundless, because he'll put out a video and somebody will send it to him, and then he'll have to get on and talk about all those stupid shit that Ryan Boundless said. And he'll try to say like, that's not true, and this isn't right, and that's not right, blah blah blah. And the way I look at it with anything in Japan, unless you're talking about a weeaboo, it's kind of like personal. You've probably spent most of your time that you've lived here in Tokyo.
Well, I lived in Sapporo for a year and a half, and then I lived in Kanagawa for a year and a half. But Tokyo has been about 2 years.
Yeah. So I mean, like if somebody was talking to you and they were trying to tell you how life was in Himeji, you wouldn't, you can't like, oh yeah, I've been to Himeji, I know what you're talking about, something like that. It's the same thing as like somebody trying to tell you how it is in Texas when you've always lived in California your whole life.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the thing that you got going on here. Like I've never actually lived in Tokyo. My whole time I've been in Japan, I've lived in Kobe.
I would advise to avoid Tokyo if you can.
Yeah, I know, me too. I used to buy cars in auctions online, and then I would go to Tokyo and I'd pick the cars up, and I would want to get out of there as quickly as possible.
Tokyo is
horrible.
Basically the worst part of Japan.
Yeah,
it's kind of like,
and that's the funniest thing, because the weeaboos, that's where they want to go.
Yeah,
they want to go to Tokyo, and everybody else in Japan doesn't want to go to Tokyo.
Was it crazy busy? Like crowded?
Oh God,
it's horrible.
Yeah,
it's horrible. Trains are horrible. Buses are horrible. Have
you ever seen a
billion people
where the people are being pushed into train cars?
Yeah, yeah. That's in Tokyo.
That's actually my life. Sometimes.
Yeah. That's in Tokyo. Yeah, you're pushed into a freaking train car.
I actually am one of the people being pushed into trains sometimes.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's really horrible. Yeah.
And the people in Tokyo are very robotic. They did a special on TV and Japanese TV about 3 months ago, or maybe a year ago. I'm not really sure, but where they did a test where they walked up to people they didn't know and they did like a bang, like a pistol, like you're shooting them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And if people in Tokyo would be like, huh? Like, huh? No, they'd be just confused. But they did the same test in Kansai, which is Osaka, and in Osaka, people would be like, oh, you shot me.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just,
they're more fun.
They're more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tokyo is just very rigid and very robotic and repetitive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you move to Tokyo as like a weeaboo or something like that, and then you end up staying in Japan, like Gaijin 3, like the video I just did and got a bunch of hate on, you have this idea that that's how Japan is. And if even if you travel around to different places, if you don't actually live there, you can't actually speak to it. It's like me taking a vacation and going to France for a week and then trying to talk about French culture. You know, it's just, you have no idea what you're talking about. And that's how a lot of these people are. They come to Japan for like a year, they live in one area, and then they go back to their country and they say, like, I know a bunch about Japanese culture.
Right.
And it's like, you know nothing about Japanese culture,
Yeah. I understand completely.
Yeah. I think that's what really gets people mad too, is like the videos that I make, I very rarely say anything in my videos decent, like nice about Japan, because I want to throw the truth. I'm throwing shade everywhere. So I talk about the truth about Japan, and that really gets a lot of people pissed off because they don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear the rosy idea of how Japan is, and that's why when you watch a lot of people's videos, I think I've turned Scott now, the Unrested, because he's a friend of mine as well. I know him, and I've turned him a little bit. He used to do a lot of those kind of rosy glasses